thing. Oh, this meeting is being live streamed. Cool. Hello, YouTube. Hi, Mom. Okay, so right. So without further ado, I'm gonna actually have 2 points of housekeeping. Actually, the first is that remember that you can be penalized if you do not take minimally 2 POIs per team, but per the judge guide of this competition, it would be ideal if you took 3. This means that on close comparisons to other teams, you could, lose basically, if it came down to engagement. And the second thing is if you have POI preferences, please state them before you begin your speech. However, to everyone else, if people do not give POI preferences, it would be my preference that you assume they want it in the chat, as if someone has forgotten, a verbal interruption is often substantially more distracting, off-putting, and technologically can create issues like echo and stuff. So unless people unless people have an explicit preference for verbal POIs, I prefer that everyone in the debate defer to the chat. Okay, so without further ado, I would invite the Prime Minister to begin the motion that stands in their name. Here.
Oh, let me get my timer. Oh, am I audible?
Yep, you are.
Okay.
That's actually a good point. One sec. Would one of my wings be willing to time keep or put timestamps in the chat?
I could do that.
Splendid. Thank you very much.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So to start off, a few key points of characterization. What is the role of university? On our side, we believe that the role of university is firstly to prepare these students to enter the job market, and secondly to allow them better integration into society, both of which will be the burden that we have to prove in this debate. So what are on our side we would like to push firstly on our side I'd like to characterize what these degrees look like. On our side, we believe that degrees that allow you to take a multiple number of courses would generally allow you to choose courses that you like. And but however, there would still be, of course, a requirement that they are from diverse degrees. You cannot, for instance, choose 4 law modules in one term. Okay, so what are the benefits of this motion? I would like to provide 4 substantives as to why this is the case. First, substantives on why soft skills are more important than specialization. On our side, we believe that you can acquire a diverse amount of soft skills if you take many different majors. For instance, an English major might help you with essay writing, a philosophy or critical thinking major might help you with critical thinking, and many of these skills are very essential for the job market. Note that I would like to be comparative here. On their side, the only skills that they would learn are the ones specific to their degree, and they cannot access the many amounts of soft skills that we offer on our side. And if they want to say that these students can take extra courses, then this is symmetric. So on our side, we are the only ones that are able to offer this benefit. So what are the impacts of this? Firstly, we believe that the impacts of this is due to the changing economy. I believe that our economy are currently facing a lot of fluctuations due to globalization, due to modernizing through the internet, and as a result, as well as the development of technology. As a result, many of our skills are becoming increasingly obsolete. For instance, we believe that data analysis or forensic scientists are becoming more and more obsolete with the rise of better computation technology. For instance, on our side, we at least offer these students some form of soft skills whereby they can transfer to other degrees or other careers that might not, and we do not pigeonhole them into a single career that might be obsolete. Secondly, the rise of gig economies in the third world. We believe that currently not only in the third world, but mostly in the third world, there is a rise of a trend called gig economy, whereby you can take gigs and essentially freelance certain jobs. And many of these jobs are not specialized, but they require a larger degrees of soft skills that culminate into a single job. For instance, you have to problem solve, you have to program or create a certain website or certain software that requires more, and this requires more than just programming, as you have to require other skills like communication, like critical thinking, that on our side we reinforce for these students. And as a result, on our side, we believe the students will be benefited as they are more able to access a vast degree of jobs, and at least they have fallback options if their skills grow obsolete. Second benefit, on our side, we believe that they are able to access more diverse social circles. Why is a more diverse social circle a thing on our side? Well, they're taking many majors, so they meet many people from many different jobs, from many different careers, and this connection allows them to not only better understand the views of other people, which as a result improves their thinking, because they're exposed to a multitude of viewpoints. But better circles also allow you to have better social connections. And on our side, we believe that better social connections allow workplace to be more efficient, as you're more able to understand each other, you have met each other before, and you're more able to cooperate. And secondly, better social connections also means that you're more likely to access more jobs on our side, which does not exist on their side. Thirdly, and this is a very important point on burnout. Their side might say that they offer a lot more efficiency if you were to specialize into one job. On our side, we believe that studying one major does not necessarily mean that you learn more things due to the mechanism of burnout. We believe that if you repeatedly take the same degree and you learn the same things over and over again, your brain even if it's something you're interested in, your brain will grow fatigue of this one subject. Repeated exposure inevitably means that your brain gets used to it and essentially gets bored. For instance, I took law for 2 months and I already fucking bored. And as a result, I believe that on their side, efficiency is something that gets worse as you get burnout. On our side, what are the impacts? Well, what are the benefits? On our side, they are more able to access a diverse amount of courses, a diverse amount of knowledge, diverse amount of skills, which can prove much more challenging than prove much more challenging than the single narrow focus skill that they have to focus on. And secondly, the second mechanism of this is diminishing return. If you were to invest yourself in a single subject, you will inevitably have to work more to gain more marks or gain more knowledge. And this diminishing return is also very demotivating for students, as they do not see improvements in skills that they have spent a lot of time in developing. On our side, there is more diminishing return is less, as they're taking new subjects, which firstly is less boring to their brain, and secondly, they can also see more rewards, they can see self-improvement, and as a result, they will be more engaged with their studying. Third, before I move on, any POIs? No. Thirdly, more varied knowledge? Why is more varied knowledge something that is especially important? On our side, we believe that many jobs in the current market requires a knowledge of a vast discipline of different things. For instance, a prime example of this is consultancy. If you want to be a consultant to a company, you have to realize political implications of a certain policy. You have to realize the economic ramifications. You might also have to understand the legal ramifications of what you are recommending. And this interconnectedness cannot be accessed, cannot be solved on their side, as actors on their side are solely focused into one field. For instance, and why is this so bad? Because on our side, we believe that students in this model would tend to be much more marketable to companies. Why is this the case? Well, companies would, of course, be more likely to hire those few people who have a lot of knowledge rather than hire like a big cohort of people who have different specialized knowledge, so they're more able to access the job market. So secondly, so I've already established for the impacts as to why there is better education for students due to the mechanisms of burnout, due to the mechanisms of soft skills. But what about the society as a whole? On our side, we believe that this motion provides a more efficient economy. Why is this the case? People are more able to find compatible jobs as they take a vast amount of degrees, and therefore they can see certain skills. They can apply skills to different jobs, and as a result, there is more employment, as there's less of a barrier to entry. As in specialization, you can only enter one subject, and the impact of this is that people are better prepared. And the third impact is that a more comprehensive understanding is also beneficial for society as a whole, which my whip will further develop upon because I'm out of time.
I'd like to thank the speaker for that fine speech and call upon the leader of the opposition to begin the case for their side. Hear, hear.
Okay. Can I just check that I'm audible? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
POIs in the chat, please. And I will start my speech. Now, the moment that you're giving this holistic education in undergraduate programs is also the moment that you're letting privileged children becoming even more privileged, because those children who are like have those children who were previously in, like, for example, going to specialization universities or going to specialized programs beforehand, they find the need to go to specialized programs even beforehand. Now that when you give specialization in undergraduate programs, it's more likely that you will slow down the social inequality that exists within society. Very proud to propose. Now, two things in my speech. Firstly, I'll prove to you why this is we give a more efficient education system, and secondly, we'll slow down why proposition exacerbates social inequality, right? So before I go on, a couple of rebuttals to what OG has brought to you. Firstly, they tell you about how this is very important to have soft skills and have an over specialization, and specialization does not give you the soft skill that you need. Now, first response to this, we don't think that this is mutually exclusive. You don't just get soft skills from having a holistic education. The moment that you also, for example, in computer science, you learn how to program, you learn how to model, you learn how to investigate different social issues in your computerized programs, is also you get different soft skills. When you communicate with other people, when you try to work on your project, studying one major does not mean that you eliminate soft skills as a whole, right? But secondly, even if we consider about how a holistic education will better give you soft skills, we think that holistic education is has already happened in high school or in secondary school as well. These individuals have already learned skills that they mentioned, for example, critical thinking. These individuals have already learned these skills. We don't see the necessity as to why these individuals should learn such skills in undergraduate programs. So we don't think that argument is provides substantive impact as to why this should exclusively happen in undergraduate programs, right? But secondly, they told you about, there's more diverse social circles and there's more diverse interactions, right? One, we also tell you this argument is not mutually exclusive. You can also communicate with different people from different majors. Just because it's a specialization program doesn't mean that you do not have the interaction with other people. But even if we take there at the best, right, essentially what we have to realize in the status quo, or what happens in undergraduate programs, or what happens in college students' social circle, is that they usually only interact with people from their major in the first place. For example, if you're a law student, you really interact with people who are not from the faculty of law, right? But also, what happens is, for example, in student organizations, if you're interested in businesses, you're probably going to interact more with people who are in the investment club, this and that. So the social circle is already quite limited in the status quo, and we don't see why having a holistic education will suddenly expand your social circle, or even if you expand it, why is that a beneficial thing? Now, moving on to our own argument, firstly, about why this is a more efficient education system and why this matters, right? Firstly, we tell you that the reason why we provide a more efficient education system is because holistic education, even if we need it, has already happened in high school or in time before undergraduate programs. Now we divide it into two cases. One, where these individuals are in privileged education systems. So for example, they attend IB level AP programs. There's already enough soft skills that they have, or enough a wide knowledge in different aspects, learning geography, history, or math, computer science. They have already learned enough skills for them to substantially go into specialization, because at the end of the day, what proposition and what we also want to agree with what they said is to prepare these individuals to a better job market or to integrate in society in their future, right? So what we see on site opposition is that we have already given them the opportunity, and now when we have specialization, these it's going to be more efficient when they have undergraduate programs that just fulfill their specialization need, and no need to go into further master or doctorate programs. But secondly, even if we don't consider those people who have already obtained IBAP, those diverse privileged programs, those students in technical secondary schools, this also slows down the need for individuals to just pursue a very specialized education in the first place, before they enter undergraduate programs. Because when you know that specialization is what the focus of undergraduate programs are, these individuals do not feel the pressure to learn specialized skills from a young age. Therefore, there will be less pressure to learn these specialized skills from a young age. And before I move on, point. Okay, I'll continue. The second thing under efficiency is also a rebuttal to what they said about like brain, like when you focus on one specific subject, it leads to fatigue, right? So one, we don't think proposition fulfills their own model about saying that they want to enter a better job market by like just having, because when they say that, oh, when you focus on one specific subject for 2 months, you already get tired of it. But notice that your job doesn't really change in like 2 or 10 years. So that you're doing the same task over and over again. This doesn't have to be repetitive, but you're focusing on something very similar for 2 to 10 years. That's why we prepare you better by letting you primarily like exposed to this kind of environment from a young age. And we think that it's going to be more helpful and more realistic for side opposition to give you this job preparation or for you to enter the job market. Now, the second argument we brought to you is about how proposition essentially exacerbates social inequality, because the group of people that we have to take note in today's debate are usually, for example, people who enter holistic education. They're probably not were like extremely concerned about finding a job. We're not just talking about, for example, rich children who are like children of CEOs or something, but we're also talking about children who do not find the need to sustain their family, who do not have to worry about putting food on their table. So the moment that you're just having more holistic education in undergraduate programs is also when you give the pressure to those children who cannot fulfill, like who has to find a job from a young age. They cannot attend college in the future. That is also to say that those privileged children are like taking advantage of their privilege by going to holistic education and then holistic undergraduate programs, and then going to pursue their masters, pursue their doctors. That's why their job market, when they are becoming more advantageous in the job market because they have a higher education, and those people who are vulnerable in the first place are already stuck in that situation. So essentially, proposition exacerbates social inequality, and then specialization fulfills better efficiency as a whole. Very proud to oppose.
I'd like to thank the speaker for that fine speech and call upon the next member of the proposition to continue the case for their side. Hear, hear.
Am I audible?
Yep.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2. So if I understand opening opposition cases as properly, they're trying to tell us that essentially if we prefer undergraduate programs that follow the holistic education model, then necessarily we'll be making people worse off. I don't understand. I believe a mistake that the opening opposition should not make, lest they throw out their entire argument, is to think that this is a policy debate where we cancel our specialized education programs. No, if there are students for whom pursuing a specialist education is the only means towards achieving financial stability, then these programs will still be available for them. What we are actually arguing is to why, for the vast majority of people, or for the average individual, the undergraduate program essentially that follows the holistic education model is one that is more preferable to a specialization model. Now, first of all, we need to, in order to win this debate, we need to think about the program that, one, maximizes the long-term happiness of the student, and in doing so, they maximize the long-term financial well-being and the long-term life satisfaction with their career outcomes as well. And two, we need to think about one that promotes a better society as well. One that promotes the productivity of the working class people that will go on to work, or people that are going to start their businesses as well. So first of all, we've given you several arguments, and most of which the opposition has refused to engage with. But in their rebuttal, they try to tell us that soft skills is something that is symmetric on both sides. This is simply not the case, and this is factually incorrect. So if you go into a specialist education program, for example, you take, computer engineering, you only learn a certain number of courses. You do not learn how to write. You do not learn how to read essays. You do not learn about politics. You do not learn about debate, for example. You do not learn too many things. You only learn the things that you've gone to that program to learn. So necessarily in our holistic education model, we have a situation where people take different courses, people gain access to different sorts of knowledge that would eventually benefit them in the long term in their career. The next thing that the opposition would like us to believe is that if you go in, that essentially your social circles do not become more diverse if you go into a more holistic education model. This is also factually incorrect. If you are going to the same sort of chemical engineering program, you meet the same people in the same classes every single year, and that does not change. Whereas in our situation, if you take a new class, you meet people that have different aspirations, different goals, and different reasons for taking the course. You simply meet a diverse set of people, and this benefits you in the long term, because in the future, then you would have a broader network of people that you can draw on. If you are in a position in your workplace where you need knowledge, where you need different types of resources, then essentially we can draw on these people also. The impact that we're creating a situation, we have an education system that prepares people best for the world that they're going into. We also give people the resources to ensure that they have better financial outcomes in the long term, and also to ensure that they have better satisfaction with their career outcomes. So let me engage with this idea that people will essentially have better satisfaction with their career outcomes. So when an individual goes into university, if they go into a specialized college, they have to invest 3 or 4 years or more even of their life in developing a specific set of skills. If a student feels unsatisfied with their decision and later comes to the realization that they have made the wrong decision, then they have significant incentives to not go back on their commitment because of the amount of time and resources already invested in the pursuit. Whereas if they've gone through a holistic education system, they do not feel this sense that if they change their mind, they essentially have to renege on this significant amount of time and resource investment, essentially allowing people to be able to make decisions whilst they're learning on what type of career that they'd like to pursue as well, without feeling that they are sacrificing the skills that they've learned. Because as we have mentioned previously, as they are studying in these holistic education system, they are gaining transferable skills. They're not gaining a specific set of skills. They're gaining skills that are transferable across a diversity of careers that they could go into. We also need to talk about the fact that these individuals in the long term are likely to have better financial well-being. Yes, while the opposition might come out to argue that if you go to the specialist college, you're more assured of getting a job because of the niche the niche education that you're trying to go in. I'm not sure the OO has even mentioned this anyway. The point is, in the long term, these individuals are far more likely to have better financial outcomes, because then they're no longer in the long term, in a world that constantly requires a diversity of skill set, in a world that is constantly changing and constantly changing the demands of human resources as well. We have people that essentially are able to adapt to these changes. We have people that are essentially better able to innovate, because in their minds they have resources, they have a broad base of knowledge that they could draw from in different points of their career. So we have people that are more entrepreneurial, we have people that are more innovative, and these are catalysts for people. These are important catalysts that enable people to be able to have better financial outcomes in the long term. POY from closing. POY from opening. Thank you. So we need to talk about the fact. So essentially, the opening opposition so far would like us to sort of cripple education for the sake of social equality. They haven't given us a reason exactly why their case even makes sense. But we can't cripple. We can't essentially have this idea where we'd be willing to limit the potential for a vast majority of people to grow. A vast majority of people, even people that are less privileged, to be able to grow and be able to be adaptable to the constantly evolving technological and economic state of the world. Essentially, we are creating a better situation for individuals across the board. Now, we also need to talk about the fact that essentially companies will constantly have changing demands in terms of what they require of the people that they're employing. If you have applied to any type of job, you hear adjectives like, this is a fast-paced working environment. The type of work you do is constantly evolving. We need people that are able to work in very high-pressured environments, and this is exactly what a liberal arts education program prepares you for. In the real world, high-paying jobs are not the ones where you perform the same task for years and years. These jobs are the exact types of jobs that require you to have a stronger ability to think, a stronger ability to conceive, a stronger ability to conceive of different problems and different issues. The reason why CJ also cannot have greater impacts more than us, because essentially we have proven to you why this impacts the individual and why this impacts society at large. First of all, we need to think about the fact that this individual, because more people, if we have more liberal arts colleges, then people will have a broader base of education and knowledge, and this even promotes societal participation. Because if we have individuals that essentially only know the specific things that that they need to know. We are less likely to have people that are interested in world affairs, that are interested in political affairs, that are interested in things that do not necessarily appear in front of them or appear in their social groups. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the speaker for that fine speech and call upon the member of the opposition to continue the case for their side. Hear, hear.
Okay. All right, my time will start now. We see no engagement to our argument on like exacerbating social inequality. The only engagement was kind of like, oh, because we didn't mechanize it enough, and we didn't give any reasoning as to why this kind of very expensive liberal arts education, like only affordable to mostly arguably rich people or like kids who are coming from a more well-off background, will like exacerbate social inequality, because those like people who are coming from a lower like socioeconomic status, they find the need to find a job earlier. We have already clarified that in our LO speech. We don't think that side government has engaged with this enough. But let's engage with their case first, and then I'll go back to extend on our case. Now, first thing that they told you in their DPM speech is basically a very close repetition of what they said in their PM speech, right? Firstly, they told you about how these children will invest in their own education. Like these 4 years are very worthwhile 4 years, and then it is not like they cannot afford to switch major or like obtain soft skills when there is specialization. Note that they have already ignored our responses on how this is like how students already have this kind of soft skills. But even if we take them at the best, we have already told you that there is like students still work on like projects, students still communicate with other people. These soft skills, no thank you, are obtained through like many other ways than your focus on your career or the focus on your education. But okay, even if we tell you that, oh, they're like they do get more soft skills, right? We think that we still prepare these students better for their job market. Why is this the case? That they have told you that, oh, this is a very flexible job market, but what the companies actually look for are those individuals who are extremely competitive, those individuals who are more talented in that skill, right? So even if you talk about, oh, there's these individuals have soft skills, the side proposition does not distinguish individuals who have more soft skills or less soft skills, right? We think that on-site opposition, there's going to be individuals who are more competitive in certain fields or in specialization in which they can actually pursue something that they're interested in to become more competitive, to find the job that they actually want. So on-site opposition, we are able to give these individuals more choices to pursue or like more competitiveness or more capable to prepare with them for their job. We think that we do this better than just what soft skills gives you at the end. But also, on-site proposition, they tell you about this financial well-being in the long term, about how there's going to facilitate interest or entrepreneurs things. Now, the first thing we want to tell you is about like efficiency or like learning efficiency, because note that there has already been programs that give you holistic education in the first place. Note that site government never engaged with the fact that it is undergraduate programs. Undergraduate programs, how does it distinguish from like high school programs or secondary school? We think that undergraduate programs with students already turn 18, many of them are already 20. It is time for them to specialize in a certain field, in a field that they have already explored interest in and they want to dive deeper into. This will further lower their efficiency in learning that skill on site proposition, because they're trying to actively looking for like different skills, and then they have like this will contradict themselves in saying that, oh, what if they invested in 4 years and know that they want to switch a major or like do something else in the future? Note that on site government, you will find out even later, and then you have to like invest in more years, more money to find the job that you actually want. And before I move on, closing.
Oh yeah, what's the line between like enough sub skills and then not enough sub skills?
Okay, we think that it is on site government's burden to prove that there is a difference between obtaining like more soft skills and less soft skills, but then like even to engage with the soft skills point, right? We think that education, holistic education, is not the only thing that gives you soft skills, and even if it is something that gives you soft skill, it is not extremely valued in the job market in the status quo. Now going on to our own case about like how this exacerbates social inequality and why this is important before going into the closing half, right? So the mechanism of this argument is essentially we have to realize, one, who are the people who are going to this kind of holistic education, liberal arts education, and second, what these liberal arts education actually looks like. Now, first thing is who are the people, right? Usually we see that those people are not like necessarily like eager to look for a job in the first place. Those people are probably like those who don't have to worry about finding a job immediately when they're like finding internship immediately because of the fact that their family could afford this like liberal arts education with a very high cost, because holistic education is arguably more expensive than a lot of specialization programs. And now the reason that we prefer specialization programs is because when you have specialized programs in undergrads, those people who were like initially going to specialized programs when they were younger now find, oh, they have more opportunities to engage with it in the future. That's why they can explore their interests when they do not feel the pressure to do so. These individuals are usually, for example, when they find the need to find an earlier, like find a job earlier because they cannot afford those kind of holistic education in the future, this and that. Now they don't find the need to find a job that early. They can still explore their interests. We feel like on-site opposition, we can better fulfill their need to better fulfill their education goal or better prepare them for the job market at the end of the day. But note also that what site proposition eventually is facilitating and why this is bad, right, is because these individuals who are well off, these individuals who are like born in a more well-off family are taking advantage of the things that you're already born with. No, thank you. And then, so note that these individuals, when you're born into a more well-off family, you can afford this kind of liberal arts education, and then you can afford to go to master program, doctorate program. Now we have to take a look at the company's incentives. What companies are actually look for, the human resource department, right? What kind of people they need. Now, like there's people who are taking like doctorate program or like master's programs, and they're like inevitably going to be prioritized over individuals who graduated from like somewhere else, like just not as educated or like not as like achievable as those individuals. That's the moment when you look at companies' incentives to find the more competitive individual or to find those people who like obtain a higher education level. That's also like when you exacerbate social inequality, when those people who are from a well-off family are even more well-off in the future because they are more competitive in finding a job finding a job in the future. But note that on-site opposition, where essentially like when you have specialized programs, individuals feel less pressured about like finding a job earlier. That's why like we're trying to equalize the ground for a lot of these individuals. We're protecting those people who are vulnerable in the status quo. Incredibly proud to oppose.
I'd like to thank the speaker for that very fine speech and call upon the member of government to open the back half. Hear, hear.
Hi, can I be heard?
Yep.
Awesome. PY in the chat, please. All right. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Opening half is kind of a wash because they say the main argument about like whether sub skills are better or the specialized skills are better and whether they get better career or not are kind of very blurred. Because first of all, they cannot accurately like predict the kind of market in the future because the current market is rapidly evolving. Things like a lot of uncertainty exists. Things like the AI, how the AI will interact in the future. Things like COVID-19 that takes away a lot of jobs from individuals. For second of all, it's hard to define where the good enough like sub skill set are, because it's fair for all to point out that maybe high school sub skills may be enough or may not be enough. There's significantly like blurred line about what is beneficial on the opening half. So this debate is not about the surface level discussion about which one is better. We as students from like the #1 liberal arts college in the United States are incredibly proud to propose. Our extension is that how we can expand the spectrum of goodness that allows people to counter the social norm that exists in the status quo, that social norm that encourages people to be special. And that is something that is impossible to achieve and makes people inherently unhappy. Three things I'm going to talk about this. First of all, this debate isn't just about mere comparison. This debate exists in the actual world where significant social norm exists. The social norm that pressures people to be special, to be only one. Three reasons why that exists. First of all, because the things that the people go through, things like college application and the company resume requires people to be unique. That is to say, you have to be extremely unique essay about what your personality is, and personality that's different from people in case of college essay, for instance. And that really makes you pressure to be unique. You have to be the only one person that is significantly different from other people. For second of all, things like a lot of media idealize the professionals who have extremely special skills, but who extremely special skills in a lot of media. And then people see that and in an idealized image, and people feel like they should be like that, or they want to be like that. But third of all, I think that a lot of advertisements are easy to exploit the vulnerability that people have about the vulnerability. For instance, it's easier for media for advertisement to say things like, are you feeling like you're doing nothing special compared to other people, or you feel like you're just having a normal life, you want something special, or you should be. I think this kind of exploitation of vulnerability is extremely easy to happen in the status quo. And for these three reasons, the significant level of social norms that pressures people to be special exist. And given that social norms, people's happiness is significantly influenced by the norm by whether they feel like they're special or not. And there are two reasons why it is impossible to achieve this goal based on the specialized subject. First of all, because it is highly more competitive than highly more competitive. Things like because people often that at the top of the people on the top of the field are those who started the actual education or received the training even before the actual undergrad. Things like they started in the childhood. Like some people play piano from literally age 10, age 5 or 7. And then they're way better than you. Things like they're way better than you, even if you start seriously from college. But second of all, even if you're relatively better, you still benchmark yourself against other people, and they feel like you're still inferior. You compare yourself to the people at the top who are idealized in the media, and they feel like you're not enough. So it is impossible to feel like you're the only one person, you're a special person, even if you try to even you have received specialized education on their side of house. Why is it more likely on your side of house to feel satisfaction, to feel acknowledgement that you are special? Two reasons why. First of all, it is structurally easier for you to be special if you have a holistic education. The reason is twofold. First of all, because it's easier to create innovation with holistic education, because even though it may be hard for you to be a number one in the field, it is easier for you to, for instance, combine 3 different fields and then be the number one with these 3 different fields. For instance, I can combine things like psychology and art, even though I may not be able to be the top scholar of psychology, but there are significantly fewer number of people who study both of them and then combine them. So it's structurally easier for you to be unique. For second of all, you as a person, you'll be significantly different if you compared to when you pursue only one thing. If you just do computer science, you may be pretty similar to a lot of people in the world, but if you do computer science, if you do art, if you do philosophy, then you're quite different. You have a lot of interests and you get a lot of skills, different skills that allow you to be different from other people. For second of all, and importantly, it's easier for you to feel that you're special, even if you're not on your side of house. The reason is that the liberal arts education will expand the spectrum of goodness. That is to say, 2 things to say. First of all, we have more messaging from universities or from the overall campus vibe that it's okay for you to just pursue a lot of different things without specializing something. And therefore, it is an active encouragement or active acknowledgement that you're doing something good. For second of all, it's easier for you to accept your vulnerability on your side of house because the people around you are also doing holistic education. So it's easier for you to share your vulnerabilities. You may feel like you're vulnerable to the social norm that exists, but people around you may feel in the same way, and you can share your concerns and then talk about that. But also the community itself are more likely to actively stand against the existing toxic social norm so that they can stand again, so that they feel more happier about it and they feel more justified. And before moving on to the impact, I want to take CEO.
Yeah, isn't it more likely that people around you will be taking different classes from you then, and it'll be harder to connect over assignments and create a bond in that way?
I mean, yeah, sure, the creative bond based on the academic subject, maybe, but you could talk about like a lot of different things. Like the interaction is not about just about academic subject that people take differently. Okay, so the impact is a lot of things. First of all, these impact are these mechanisms are not dependent on whether these like sub skills are better or not, or more important or not. The second of all, we provide better mechanisms about things like depression or to the vulnerable individuals. Because notice that we provide mechanisms that when you feel like you're inferior, when you feel bad about yourself, that's when constant depression is likely to occur. And this happiness is the most important consideration in this debate, because opening half talk about like getting a better job, but we didn't see why is that inherently the most important thing in the debate. The reason why getting a better job, getting some money, access to money is most important is because that allows you to have some choices that makes you happy. So at the end of the day, the mechanism that makes people happier is the most important thing, because that is where all the most utilities at the end of the day comes from. So let's quickly get rid of Bo's argument about inequality. First of all, that's unlikely to be the actual context, because a lot of people who quickly need a job, who quickly need money, are likely to go to vocational school rather than the undergrad and spend 4 years studying about stuff. The second of all, I think these jobs are unlikely to affect significantly in the job market, because often a lot of companies have to process significant amount of applications, and therefore they just look at the university names instead of like the major, or instead of like what you did in that certain field. So the influence that the jobs have is significantly little on their side of house, which significantly mitigates the impact from opening competition. For all these reasons, we think liberal arts education isn't just about its sub skills or better or not. It's about what it's about what makes people happier. We're proud to propose.
I'd like to thank the speaker. Holy, sorry, there was a bit of an echo there. Apologies. I was very surprised. Yeah, so I'd like to thank the speaker for that very fine speech and call upon the member of opposition to begin the case for their team. Hear, hear.
All right. POIs are generally accepted in chat, although it would help if you raise your hand, because I just get a little notification. It's kind of hard to see, but either works. Let's just get the clock. 7:15, 3, 2, 1. So judge, in the specialized degrees can be multifaceted with one general subject. For instance, philosophy, politics, and economics is a specialized program at the University of Oxford that covers more than one area of specialization. So this framework allows for multi-specialization programs that are not just fully holistic programs that require every little bit of a subject. And you can still double major too in non-holistic programs as well. So you can explore more than one area of interest. So for instance, if you want to explore both computer programming and history, you can still double major in this thing. You just wouldn't have to satisfy the college's entire spectrum of requirements. You wouldn't have to take music, for example. Next, we'd like to respond to the opening government. So they talked about social circles and interactions, like how people interact by like taking the same courses together. But judge, the reality of college is social circles are more greatly explained by living arrangements than courses. You talk to people you meet in your dorm, your common areas right from the start of university, and those are the people who become your friends. Also, just floating from intro class to intro class really prevents long-term bonds with classmates, because you're not going on the same track. When you're in non-holistic model, you're on the same track with the same amount of people for the whole ride in the vast majority of the classes. So you'd actually share more of the classes with the same people, and furthermore, you lead into more bonds and thus greater opportunities in the job market, especially since in the job market, you'd likely want to have friends in your area of interest, not from all fields, because you want to work in your area of interest. Next, they talk about general knowledge. But the thing is, why would you hire 20 people who know many things somewhat well instead of 20 people who are experts in their role? You would hire students with specialization. So the holistic model just isn't very good. They talk a lot about soft skills, but these soft skills likely aren't enough to be a job. Soft skills are not what makes a chemist a chemist. A rigorous study of chemistry is what makes a chemist a chemist. And then they also said that holistic education is the only way to make soft skills, as the opening government said, get that through high school education. And like you could also do it through activities in clubs and other stuff, which is its own way. Debate, for example, a student club is a way to receive soft skills. And now we'd like to respond to closing government. about uniqueness. The thing is, because you can double major, you can under this education, this doesn't preclude being unique. You can still do like biology and computer science, for example. And also every single major field is very broad and also allows for uniqueness. And also all holistic education does is make everyone take a lot of intro classes that standardize students. It's not going to make you the foremost. Taking an intro programming class isn't going, and specializing in history isn't going to make you the best computational history person. And also they say that money isn't that important, but feeding your family is also very important, and not being able to feed your family will reduce your overall happiness. So comparison of others happens on both sides of the house because this comparison is neutral. All right, so here is our point. Undergraduate model programs that use a holistic model of teaching have to leave fewer resources for the universities that conduct research. When every student is required to take a few classes from every university department, that requires each of those departments to carry a great portion of their resources in grad student classrooms and time hosting classes for undergrads. That leads to research detraction from research. With fewer research, university departments that teach under a holistic model will have less ability to invest in research. Plus, in the specialization model, where students devote their time to one subject, they have greater opportunities to contribute to the subject area. This can and usually will include research. And this is a great opportunity for universities and students to distinguish themselves and contribute to the work of academia and human scholarship. It's also how they acquire much of their federal funding, which is really important for budgetary interactions, especially with keeping their professors. It's also how they can make money by issuing patents or publishing their research in books. And also, a world with more research is a more preferable world, leads to greater innovation, and a greater contribution by university and the non-specialized models in the field of research. So the specialized model leads to greater education in the field of interest to the student than the non-specialized model. And because of this, they are more likely to participate in research, and thus under this model, more research will happen. Finally, the opening government says that students in holistic programs have more flexibility. However, this isn't usually the case, at least for extension, because students in undergraduate programs that require holistic approaches are required to take classes in wide varieties of field they have little interest in. When students are forced to take unappealing classes, it affects them in several ways. One, it diverts from their focus in their desired specialization. This inhibits their ability to evaluate their specialization early on, with their time in college narrowing the window they have to pick for the specialization. It's drastically better for a student to realize they dislike engineering in the first term of school than the final term of their second. So they'd have more exposure to different courses and realize really quickly what the field is about and how hard it will be. And then this also happens because a holistic university usually requires students to finish their holistic requirements first. So they won't know their major is bad until they actually start their major. When students are forced to make a snap decision on their specialty, they often pick wrong. It's common knowledge that most students cycle through several majors before settling on one program. And when students major in programs they dislike, it has many adverse impacts in their lives, and they feel unfulfilled, leading to worse happiness. I will take the POI, CG.
This motion requires you to take a trade-off. At the point of wording says you take courses in one field almost exclusively. So you can't be like double majoring, triple majoring.
That is not true. You can have a holistic education with double majors. I mean, that is allowed. It'd be the equivalent. You just have more units overall. So, for instance, in the non-holistic education, you would have a certain amount of units, and you can distribute those to electives what you want. But the thing is, you wouldn't be forced by the university to take classes in a certain area. So someone who wants to double major in computer science and history would be able to do so, but they wouldn't have to take an art class. They wouldn't have to take the non-relevant classes to their degree. And overall, this would still, even with the double major, leave more space for the majors to be fully developed majors. And also the applicants for jobs in this situation would be more qualified because they will have taken more courses on that specific subject area. And that concludes this time and why closing opposition should win this debate.
I'd like to thank the speaker for that fine speech and call upon the last member of the proposition bench to close the case for their side. Hear, hear.
Hi everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. In which case, I would actually prefer POIs verbally, please. I will be, yeah, and with that, I will begin soon. It's only fitting that Hugo and I, a Japanese person and a Hong Konger who came to the US because we hated our respective education systems and our time at the Yale Ivy with this. I just want to go through each team one by one, starting with OG. Notice their central point, that you are more likely to get a job in a changing job market because you get soft skills and critical thinking. CG as a whole is like neutral at this point. We think it may or may not be true. Neither side, like between like OG and OO, really gives us any compelling mechanism as to why soft skills exist or are important. But the point is, the mechanisms that we give you don't depend on that clash to find the opening house. What Hugo gives you is a compelling truth. Unfortunately, the vast majority of jobs that uni graduates get have nothing to do with what subject they chose in uni. This is notoriously true in companies that use, like countries that use a specialized education system, like the UK and my home. But the fact is, unfortunately, like you can choose to do a math degree, your friend can choose to do English, but the vast probability is that you two are likely to be sitting next to each other at the same like office desk job for like an advertising company, right? It is unfortunately true, and we wish that wasn't true, but no side can change this, that what really matters in terms of like what job you get is probably what uni you go to. That you can do engineering at a state school, but unfortunately it's more likely for you to be able to get into consulting if you do like a humanities degree and the Ivy League. The fact of the matter is, therefore, that no side like mechanizes the assumption to you that permeates this round that what uni subject you do necessarily gets you a specific kind of job. Our mechanisms don't rely on that assumption at all. And so on that basis, if you care about the career clash, we give the most realistic conception of it. The second thing I want to say on this, that notice that this isn't to say that no jobs require like you to have a specific subject whatsoever, is that the jobs that do, like being an engineer, being a doctor, require a degree of specialization that needs you to do more than a BA anyway. Hugo gives you the reasons as to why, therefore, we make graduate school better, that through multiple disciplines, you're more likely to come up with new ideas, that the marginal cost of creating a new idea in chemistry, so to speak, is much harder than combining like ideas from different disciplines, because so many people have had their eyeballs trying to write their fucking PhD thesis about an idea in chemistry that no one's thought about before. By bringing those disciplines together, you're more likely to succeed in graduate school. And so if you care about specialized jobs, that's how you get them, right? Not through all of the soft skill stuff. We explain to you how this actually works. But notice that Hugo gives you something very compelling that no one really responds to, right? That fundamentally what jobs are for, and therefore what this debate should be about, is happiness. Notice that OG like mentions the word burnout. You think that we give you a far more sophisticated mechanism, right? You have far more axes of talent that are validated by the system, right? Whereas if you're in a specialized subject and you choose to do like math, for example, because society pressures you to normally do something that's deemed socially acceptable, your talents in art aren't recognized. In a system that encourages you to do multiple disciplines, that is inherently far more likely. And so if you care about personal fulfillment, which is like if you care, like even if you care about outcomes, is fundamental in being able to succeed. You need to be happy, right? Those happen far more on our side of the house. Specialized structures, on the other hand, lead to that kind of toxic competition. That you can the only kind of goodness that matters is your goodness at your subject, for example. And that means that everything is focused on one aspect of yourself. That's where you're far more likely to be unhappy. Secondly, that you don't choose a subject that you're best at in the world. This is like crucial, right? But the one that is socially encouraged. Hugo mentions to you that this house prefers debate, meaning that we're debating the calling the status quo, where unfortunately these norms about what is a good subject and what is a bad subject exist, right? That means that even if you're good at like art, for example, you're likely to force yourself to go into like law school, right? In the status quo, in a world in which specialized structures are the norm. And that means that you're going to be incredibly unhappy. The impacts of this, that you're more likely to get like feel inferior, you're more likely to get this kind of toxic competition about an aspect of yourself that you don't care about. And then fundamentally, the forces of hand that you do have are viewed as invalid. We give you different axes of goodness through which you can feel good about yourself, and that leads to all sorts of like impacts that permeate throughout your life. Your ability to be confident in yourself, which leads to material success, your ability to pursue what truly makes you happy, right? And so on that basis, we prove what is like fundamental in this debate and the purpose of education, becoming an individual that is able to live their life to the fullest. And even if you want to care about a career clash, we show you why like the actual mechanisms that work in the like workforce given the way that currently exists. Before I continue, I will take a POI actually. No? Okay. Moving on to CO, and I want to just get through their plans very quickly. Firstly, you say that you can do multiple disciplines in SASCO. Like Hugo asked a pretty good POI, which is that the info side says by definition that a specialized like subject is one which you do like one thing for the vast majority of your time. Like we think that this is like you're just like on the wrong side here, guys. Secondly, they say that like, oh, holistic education is bad because you take a bunch of intro classes. This is literally asserted one. But two, it assumes an absolute skill is the point of a bachelor's necessarily. If you care about absolute skill, you should go to graduate school because that's what jobs are going to require in the first place. Thirdly, they say that this reduces resources of research. One, resource usage in and of itself is not a reason not to do something. This is argument about giving out BAs at all. They don't like flesh this out at all. And secondly, we improve research, right? Insofar as like you're able to do more things when you have those ideas, if they say that research is important, we provide better. You just say like more resources gives you better research. We give you an actual mechanism that you can believe. The third thing, I do want to engage you with like opening opposition, just out of sportsmanship, right? The first thing that they say is that you can learn soft skills in a specialty. This is fair and true, but it's not they don't necessarily prove to us, as Hugo points out, why this is enough. Secondly, notice that soft skills that they talk about, we make far more accessible, right? When you're able to get that kind of self-fulfillment, we don't think necessarily that should be blocked out necessarily just to the upper class, right? Given that like it's unlikely that you're going to be able to gain social mobility, especially in the long term, given the trends that exist in the job market, just through a uni degree, that's why you should care about our benefits more. Secondly, Earl points out that holistic education increases inequality. This is predicated on the idea, one, that specialization does get you a job. And secondly, as Hugo points out, the good jobs are really going to get these people up like the social ladder, come through the trades anyway. This is things like a lot of trades already pay more in terms of salary than like basic uni degree entry-level jobs. Like in the status quo right now, we don't see any reason why that trend is going to stop. That's likely the avenue for you through which you improve your life if you're part of the lower class. Thirdly, they say that you need to specialize at some point. This is fair, but the bachelor's is almost always too early for this, right? Even the status quo, specialized BAs are almost always a preparation for masters anyway, so we think that we win on that point as well. Fundamentally, Hugo's the only person in this debate to explain to you how the job market actually works. Everyone assumes, like everyone talks like a uni brochure, right? Where they assume that like what subject you do actually matters. In the vast majority of cases, and we wish this weren't true, but no one in this debate can change it, it doesn't, right? And so what you need to focus on are the things that truly make you fulfilled, the things that permeate throughout your life, allow you to access all of those forms of happiness. I'm more than proud at the end of this tournament to propose.
I'd like to thank that speaker for that very fine speech and call upon the last member of the opposition to close the case for their side. Hear, hear.
All right, hello. I will be taking POIs in the chat. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right, excellent. Starting off then in 3, 2, 1. All right, so first off, we want to talk about this definition that we have here for the framework of this round. Okay, so coming out of the closing government speech, they basically say that like we're not allowed to have multiple majors like within our thing. That misses the point of our definition. What our definition is talking about is specialized programs that focus on a few fields, whereas holistic programs force students to focus on every single field, a little bit of every single field. What am I talking about? I'm talking about specific specialized programs such as things like politics, philosophy, and economics, a very common specialized program throughout the world that allows students to like pick a few specific interests that they have and specialize in that. So that's what we're talking about when we say that. Okay, so then continuing on. Okay. So first of all, just continuing some of our responses, first of all, starting off with the opening opposition. Okay, so starting off with opening opposition. First of all, extend our idea that I'm sorry, not opening opposition, opening government. Extend our idea that like their ideas about social circles. This is a unique point that we bring to the round, that social circles are uniquely explained by living arrangements in your dorms and like who you meet, like who's your roommate, who are you living in your dorms. Also, extend the idea that like holistic programs force you to take like a bunch of introduction classes in like a bunch of different fields, which means that you don't actually have consistent classes with the same people, which actually prevents you from creating a bond with your friends. This is something that goes unresponded to. It is the key thing that we think we're winning on. And we think that having a better social circle is a key thing that actually helps you to have better happiness in your life and better fulfillment later on down the line. Also, on this general knowledge point, this is something that I think both sides here on opposition agree on, that why companies don't want to hire people who know many things somewhat. Instead, 20 people are experts in their role. Closing government comes up with this idea that employers that jobs like that you don't go into what you specialize in. We completely reject this. We look at fields like political science, like economics, like computer science, where like people definitely do go like into being a developer or go into working on Capitol Hill, these sorts of things. Like people definitely do go into like their specific careers that they specialize in, depending on what they do. And then again, on soft skills, this is a huge point in the debate, like against the opening government here. The DPM literally tells us that like debate a student club is a great way to achieve soft skills. We think this proves that like clubs are actually much more conducted to gaining soft skills. My partner is actually a geology major, like nothing related at all to like the idea of like discourse and like politics and econ, which is generally more of a debate thing. That's literally a completely different field. And it literally shows that like without holistic models, like students can actually pick the clubs instead of being forced to take generic intro classes in fields that they don't care about. They can pick the fields that they care about outside of their specialization and can actually pick to do clubs in those fields and actually get a much more enriching and fulfilling opportunity. And again, I'll take that POI.
Even in specific fields such as journalism, there was mass layoff with the advent of the internet, as internet journalism required vastly different skills from that of normal journalism. How does your side reconcile this obsoleteness?
So we actually think that goes back to the happiness point. We actually think that if people specialize in journalism, that's actually because like, or end up specializing in journalism, that's because it makes them uniquely happy and uniquely fulfills them. And we also think that like obsolete jobs happen on both sides. And we actually think like the people who are most specialized in their fields are most likely to retain their jobs. Like when their field gets worse, like the people who are more generalized actually go first. So it's actually a net negative there. Anyways, on to the closing government. So at their idea that you want to be like unique and like being a unique person's a good thing, literally holistic models make you take these generic courses that like are just the intro courses. Literally, like by uniqueness, we think that like specializing is actually a great way to become more unique, because you take the more specialized classes within your field that you're specializing in and can take the more unique and quirky things. We also think that our ideas about research are another key way that like the fact that like in a world with more specialized models, research is more emphasized at universities, which I'll get to. That's actually another excellent reason why you're actually going to be a more unique person. And we, again, also like extend this idea that like with clubs, you can be unique. And then there are ideas in like benchmarking yourselves to others. Like you're always going to benchmark yourselves to others. You're going to be in a career where you're like comparing yourself to others. Like that's just going to happen on both sides of the house. And there's like no significant reason to explain why that's not the case. Okay, so let's move on to our least covered point, I would say, by both by the government in this debate. So first of all, OG talks about like students in holistic programs having more flexibility, but we give you a clear mechanized way that this is not the case. We say that when students in undergrad programs like have to take lots of classes like over their first 2 years in university, for instance, the University of Chicago, we basically only take like introduction classes in a bunch of different fields because it's a holistic approach. Basically, you can't take the fields in the things that you come into university interested in. Let's say you come in interested in engineering. You're only going to be taking your main engineering classes at the start of like the end of your second year or something, when it's already too late to switch your major. If you go for a specialized approach, either what's going to happen is you're going to come to university and realize that you love this thing and you actually want to continue to do it right from the start, or you're going to realize that it's the wrong path for you and completely change your specialization while there's still time. And we think that this is actually a true thing in the round. They talk about graduate student programs, this sort of thing, and like actually talking about their argument about like law and that sort of thing. But maybe you really love art, but you can't take an art, like you can't take like an actual art class for the kind of art you want to take, because you have to take a math class or a bio class or something like that. So you can't actually investigate whether you want to like reject this law school idea for that. That's like the key thing. And we actually think this is the key impact of happiness that actually happens here in the round, because students are going to feel unfulfilled in their career. They dislike their working conditions. Their mental anguish is going to follow them for the rest of their life as they doubt whether they actually were able to pick the right thing in this round. We think this is like the biggest impact in the debate and the most clearly mechanized impact here. Also, continuing on, undergrad programs that utilize a holistic model of teaching leave fewer resources for them to conduct research. And I'll take a point.
The definition of specialization depends on the info slide. So double majoring isn't almost exclusive, that the motion says. But even if that's not the case, people on your side actively counter the toxic social norm that will never be met on your side of house.
Okay, first of all, we think that our definition like well fits in with the idea of specializing in like one general field. We're just saying in multiple disciplines is our idea, and when we do think that's very distinct from a holistic model, which requires you to investigate everything. Okay, let's go back to this idea about research. They say closing government says that like research is like something that we're not allowed to access, basically, because like resources aren't a real thing. We say that like if we're comparing worlds, like worlds are going to have like two different worlds are going to have the same resources. What we're saying here is that when when every single department has to teach all the undergrad students a little bit, then they have to devote like teachers' time, classrooms, those sorts of things. The reason why a world and that takes away from research, where specialization research can occur. The reason why a world with more research is more preferable is many reasons. University research leads to superior innovation in society, life-saving drugs, machinery, political research and analysis and tools. We also say that and this is why we need to promote worlds with greater research. Also because it's more attractive to employers. With more research opportunities, students actually distinguish themselves and are more attractive to employers and getting the best jobs. It also makes students more unique when they get to conduct research, and it builds student networks because they get to talk to professors. And these are all reasons why we are so proud to oppose today. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the speaker for that very fine speech and everyone for it was a fantastic debate. Congratulations on making it to the novice final of the Yale Fall IV. It was a pleasure to hear.